Hey everyone, my name's Kevin, aka Toying Around. Welcome back to the channel. Normally, I do toy reviews and unboxings, and on special occasions, I get to speak with some of the people who are behind some of these awesome toys. I'm joined today by Josh, the VP of Design from Super7. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I had an interview with Brian Flynn before, and some of your designers like Kyle. And but can you tell people a little bit about yourself? I've only seen like a recent video of you showing off some figures, but not so many with like I don't know. Do you do a lot of interviews with people making the rounds?
I've done some here and there. I've talked to people at conventions when we did those more regularly, of course. I've done a bit of that, but I spend more time behind the curtain, so to speak. But yeah, it's always nice to get out and talk to folks and get to, get into all of the details of what we're doing.
Well, recently, well, for me, huge announcement because I'm a huge fan of The Simpsons. I'm sure a lot of people on your side are as well.
Oh yeah.
Real light question, real simple off the bat. Favorite Simpsons character that isn't the main family for you?
Oh man, that is so hard.
Because
Um,
there's so many, right?
There's so many. I mean, we could talk about favorite Simpsons characters for days. Um, First thing that jumps to mind, don't hold me to this for all time, but the first one that jumps to mind is Duffman.
Nice. And a pretty good choice. Some great lines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Duffman.
Exactly.
When he wears the reporter's jacket, all of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to start disagreeing with myself the more I think about it.
Okay. You know what? Just let's stay with the first decision. That's usually the best one, the one you answered out of instinct. We have the announcement of the Ultimates Wave 1 for The Simpsons from Super7, which is super awesome. Can you speak to the fans, speak to the choice of not having some of the more classic looks for the main characters, such as Homer? You do have Homer here, but it's like a Deep Space Homer. It's more of a one episode look.
For
Can you
sure.
tell the fans a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, when we look back at, what has been made with The Simpsons over the years and what gets us excited about the Simpsons, being fans since, back since the beginning when the show first began. Of course, we all love the Simpsons family, but there's how many different versions of regular Bart out there, or regular Homer, or regular Marge. And so when we were looking at where we wanted to start, we wanted to go with a bit more of, what are the sort of lesser represented versions of our favorite characters? And so, with Homer, there's a lot of different looks we could have gone with, but as we talked through it, Deep Space was the one that sort of coming up for everybody. Here internally. And then same thing with Itchy and Scratchy. Rather than doing just the standard Itchy and Scratchy, it's like, oh, let's go to the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode and see, when they're in the robot parade and then they go berserk and do the killer robot thing. And so it was just a way to sort of try to find a way to talk about the Simpsons and some of the core characters in a in a more uncommon, less expected way.
Okay, that's cool. And like I'm assuming you don't have to say anything, but I'm hoping somewhere down the line, if it keeps going, we will get um some sort of classic family look. But these characters do have different costumes all the time. If you have like a Homer, Deep Space Homer with all these expressions, and then if you do another Homer later on down the line, are there plans or are there talks of like, or just awareness if heads would be swappable from the same character, even though there's different expressions, to try and fit them all for the same character down the line?
Yeah, for sure. So, we don't know, we've just sort of launched this first wave, but we expect that we'll get, several waves into this line, and we've planned quite a ways down. And we definitely will touch on, some of the deep cut things, but as well as some of the more mainstream classic looks of a lot of these characters. And when we get into that, when you talk about a Homer, say, the heads that fit on the Deep Space Homer will fit on any other Homer that we would ever make, just so you can, if you end up with, say, 2 or 3 different Homers over time, there's just that many different faces that you can put chomping the potato chip head from the Deep Space version. You can put that on. I don't know. Maybe we're making this. Maybe we're not. Put that on the Moo Moo Homer or whatever else.
There's so many different costumes. Like, it's perfect for a toy line if you can get into it for however many waves you can for all the different costumes. So that's really cool to hear, especially like you know, the meme of Homer drooling over a gummy Venus de Milo.
Oh yeah.
So just hearing about this line, I've started rewatching a lot of episodes, a lot of classic episodes. What's the general feeling like around? Is everyone still in the office, or people that you're in contact with who are working on this? It's just like, just the possibilities. I mean, there's so many seasons of this.
Oh yeah. I mean, as we go through, when we talk about both getting into the details of the characters we're making, as well as planning out the line more generally, there's a lot of talk about, you know, oh, remember this episode, remember that episode. We were just talking about the gummy Venus de Milo the other day. And you know, everybody has their favorites, and so we all sort of chime in and talk about, oh, remember this, remember that, and that helps inform the character selection we want to do and the accessories we want to include. And then, you know, when it gets into, say, Itchy and Scratchy, the robot versions here, I've watched that episode probably 15 times in the space of a couple weeks. You know, just watch it again, watch that clip again. You know, slow it down. Take a screen capture, zoom in, you know, try to really see, you know, so when you get into things like, okay, we're going to make this head with the face taken off when he's laying on the table, you know, we want to get real familiar with those moments and make sure we're doing it right. Is
there anything articulation wise that you guys have planned that isn't easily visible on just showing a promo photo like this, or a digital render that, you know, a toy fan would want to know that's there?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have here this is one of our sort of tooling outputs. And so this is one of the first stages after you get, you know, we do the digital sculpture, we do the renders, and then we have it output and painted, and then we do for, you know, photography and videos and so forth. And then we do an output at the factory level where they're starting to test all of that articulation and make sure everything works. Right. So, you know, you have, you know, like you can bend the knees, you can rotate at the ankles, you can rotate at the hip, you can turn the head and all of those types of things. And then when we get this sample, you know, it's like, okay, right now, this leg, there we go, is that straight? That's not giving me quite the range I want. So then we'll go in and, you know, scoop a little bit of volume out of the inside of that joint so we can get a little bit of a wider range of articulation there. Same thing with the shoulders. So that's sort of the process in terms of making sure we get all of that articulation correct. But in terms of which pieces articulate, if you're familiar with any of the Ultimates we've made, they're for the most part pretty consistent across all the lines of, you know, you've got the swappable hands, articulate the wrist, the elbow, right, the shoulders, all that jazz.
Awesome. And of course, it comes with the beautiful Ultimates box packaging. I always say every time I open one Ultimates figure, it's like I opened 4 toys just because of how many layers it comes with. But this is a fantastic choice for the box sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, you know, we looked at some different options and we talked about, you know, should it be like this? Should it be like that? But that classic opening with the clouds parting and the title coming up, just, I mean, it is the most iconic thing. And it felt like, you know, naturally the right way to execute the slipcase as you open that up and start the episode that you're going to get into.
Oh, look at that. It's like, it's an experience. It's a whole episode just opening the box.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I dig that. Also, we've got Mo. I mean, an awesome character. Pretty cool to get Mo in a wave 1, and some great portraits on here for his expressions.
Yeah, I mean, Mo's another one of those, yeah, he's another one of those characters where he's, you know, we did go with a more classic look here in terms of the costume, but then it's okay, well, you can go get a standard Mo. It's been made a few times, and those toys that are already out there are excellent. But what could we do that takes it to a slightly different place? And so, you know, then you get into some of these episode specific references, like, you know, he's got the rag, that's a bartender thing. He's got the apron, but then he's got the flaming Mo. He's got the, the panda from the, that sort of running joke that he's smuggling animals out of the back.
That panda is ridiculous, by the way. That accessory, it's ridiculous in the best way.
Yes. That's what we're trying to do, just like what sets these things apart and makes them, sort of the craziest, the most fun thing we can make it.
You don't really need Mo, Sislak, or any Simpsons to get into crazy poses. Is there like just a regular waist swivel, or there's no crunch there, or any articulation here, or not?
No,
that
there is a it's not really an ab crunch, it's more of an ab swivel that's it's on a ball joint here. So this output, like I was saying with Homer, these are the early ones that we have to do a little bit of tweaking on to get them to the correct range we want. But you get a little bit of turn, and you can get a little bit of forward and a little bit of back, just so you can get it into he doesn't need to do wild martial arts or anything necessarily, but you can just have him turn and pose like he's talking to somebody over here, and just get a little bit more life out of the figures.
Awesome. Yeah, it's hard you don't see it in that, but in the photo, but that's really good to know. Love that he's always going Didi Mao, trying to get the pandas back into the cage in the back room.
Yeah, he's a really fun one, and that was another one where there's just, you could almost make 2 entire releases of all the various things he could come with, but we ended up with the pickled eggs, the flaming Mo, the panda, and the telephone for all the prank calls.
Another probably one of the most hyped up of Wave 1 is Poochie.
Yeah. Poochie is another one of those characters that is sort of this iconic kind of hilarious deep cut, and it really speaks to that sort of parody of that 90s extreme in your face kind of advertising and whatnot that we all remember. And it was such a short-lived character, but it just really it was just stuck in our minds, and it kept coming up when we were talking about it. So we just said, what, let's make Poochie right out of the gate, because that's one that we're all super excited about. Now, I don't think this character's been made yet, as far as I know.
Did they not have it in the original line?
There could be one in the World of Springfield line. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think I've seen one.
I think I've heard a lot of feedback where like, oh, if I'm only getting one from this wave, it's like, if you're only watching one movie this summer, well, if you're only going to get one from this wave, some people are like, Poochie is the one for them. So
Poochie's the one.
It's a cool figure and character to have in there. The surfboard on a
table, holding a surfboard. Yeah.
Yes.
Third.
And of course we have the Itchy and Scratchy murder robots. Are you Team Itchy or Team Scratchy? Who do you want to win?
I would be more Team Itchy if I absolutely had to choose, but I don't think I would want one to win, because then the battle would stop.
Well, and then the next episode resets. There's no continuity.
Yeah, they'd have a lot of holes in them if there was a continuity there.
Anything cool we should know about, like this robot body figure and the accessories?
I don't have a articulation sample here in front of me on these guys, but Scratchy is really big. He's about a good 8 inches tall, and then Itchy right next to him is a little bit smaller, and they, same thing. They'll bend at the shoulders, elbows, knees, hips, wrists, all that jazz. But my favorite part about them is they have interchangeable heads. They have their standard heads that you see here, and then you have an alternate head where you can take the top off to see the robot brains inside on Itchy here, and take the face off on Scratchy, just to show those couple, just pops right on.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Pops right on and slides right off, so you can see their robot innards. And as kind of a robot nerd myself, that aspect of it I'm really excited about.
The Scratchy one has the Bort.
Yeah,
plates.
Yeah, the Bort license plate, which is just such a hilarious joke running from that episode. And then you've got the mallets, the axes, the Tommy gun, the little walking animatronic axe, and then of course Itchy has the bass drum to play in the parade that'll hang around his neck, and little mallets to play.
Awesome first wave, first offering. When I spoke to Kyle, first of all, How unhealthy is Kyle's obsession with Ghost?
It's bordering on extremely unhealthy to detrimental to his life unhealthy.
I asked Brian that same question, and I'm going to ask for everybody who I speak with regarding that.
As well you should. That's a good running joke around here in the office. Kyle is a super fan when it comes to Ghost.
When he was working on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he watched the entire series to do research, take notes on costumes and things like that. The Simpsons is 30 seasons long. Was one person assigned to watch all of it? Did you guys split it up? Did you or are you just taking it a few seasons at a time?
With that one, because it is such a huge amount of episodes, we didn't really go about watching it all systematically in total. So what we really started just talking about, like, okay, well, what sticks in your mind? What do you remember? And we would sort of bounce that question around between all of us, and we would just sort of talk about our favorite episodes, and then that would trigger memories of other favorite episodes, and then we just started compiling a list of the things that really stood out, at least for an initial few waves, and then watched those specific episodes to get into the research. And then, of course, we ended up watching a lot of, YouTube best of clips and things like that,
yes.
Sort of jar the memory. It's like, here's 5 minutes of Mo answering the phone. Here's, 6 minutes of Homer saying dough in different costumes. Or, I follow an Instagram called Homer in Hats, and it's just pictures of Homer wearing hats throughout the series. And just, because there's so much to watch, just sort of keeping track of all these little things sort of helps just trigger the conversation among ourselves here. And that helps direct where we put our energy.
That's actually pretty clever. Instead of going through everything, it's like, hey, someone's compiled all of these things. We can just watch like a highlight reel.
Yeah, at least as a starting point. And then once we get into it, then we get deep into the weeds and really, study pretty carefully the episodes that we land on.
Also, The Simpsons have a very unique look, and I think all of the Ultimates lines are made into a certain style so that they all kind of fit on the same shelf. If you were to put them on the same shelf, they kind of all go together really well. Is there anything that we're doing or you're doing with The Simpsons that's, trying to keep them compatible with that kind of Ultimates look, or it just looks good as it is?
I mean, it's a little tricky, honestly, because if you look at, say, let me grab a thing here, actually. If you look at a Lion-O next to a Homer, it's like, yeah, they're in about the same scale, and they can family next to each other. They have the same articulation structure. They have some of the same types of approach as far as that goes. But aesthetically, they're wildly different, of course. Sort of lean and muscular and more of an aggressive thing. And this is, of course, round and soft and cartoony, just like the show. So I think getting them into a place where they are more or less the same scale, where they feel consistent across a shelf, but they're always going to look a bit different, or quite a bit different aesthetically.
I don't know if you can say anything about this. Are there any limitations with this license? Like, there's a lot of guest appearances over how many years from different celebrities and whatnot. Are those off limits or any other limitations with this?
There's no real limitations. I think, when you get into celebrity appearances, then you would get into a double licensing situation where you'd have to go get, make an arrangement with whoever that actor or celebrity is. And we've done things like that on different projects where, for, say, some movie has the rights to a character and to a costume and whatnot, but not the likeness of the actor. So we have to get the likeness to that actor separately. For example, we've recently done the Conan the Barbarian. So we have the license to Conan and then work with the people at Conan to separately get the likeness rights for Arnold Schwarzenegger, for James Earl Jones, etc. And so, there is a route we could go with some of that in that regard. And then, there's a couple other characters here and there that they've, not in a real official way, but have sort of said, like, that maybe that character didn't age as well over time, and it was a joke that people thought was kind of funny back in the 80s when they created the character, feels a little a little less appropriate now. So we'll stay away from those types of things.
Okay.
But beyond that, I mean, we'll get into the weeds. We'll do whatever we think is fun and whatever everybody else thinks is fun.
Sweet. I could see like this license, this property works very well across a lot of the Super 7 lines. So I'm hoping to see a lot of awesome stuff. Also, I think there was the original toy line, and there were some newer ones. Is there? You've mentioned earlier, like for the main family, there are some characters. You've gotten them in that costume a few times before. Do you look at a lot of the previous lines as well, and other things that you see that you want to do better, or is there anything that you want to avoid similarities in that sense?
We haven't really looked at it at any of the previous lines very, specifically in terms of like, oh, that's, we'll glance at, there's another character in a later wave that I don't think I can really mention just yet, but we went and looked back at some earlier iterations of that character to sort of think about like, well, how did they handle that? That's a really odd, hairstyle, for example. So it's like, how did somebody else handle sculpting that? Let's take a look at that and, sort of evaluate if we feel like that was successful or not, or how might we improve it. But I think for the most part, the toys that have been made are really nice, and they're, we're trying to take it into a different format in terms of the size and the posability, but also the main point of difference we're really trying to make is the character selection and the accessories.
I mean, Ultimates always kills it with all the accessories, so I don't think there's any worry there with any of that stuff. It's going to be fantastic. But were there any challenges, any specific characters translating it from like a 2D cartoon to a 3-dimensional, where it's like once you see it, it's like it doesn't really have the same feel as a flat image on your screen? Were there any challenges like that?
Oh, for sure. And I think when you get into sculpting these characters, like when you look at some of the more detailed or more, more human anatomically accurate type characters, it's not necessarily easier, but it's easier to look at something and see like, okay, well, I can tell we made the eyes too big on the face, so we need to bring those down because now it sort of doesn't look like a human. And if you bring them down, it does again. Things like that, or like the hair flows a certain way. With really cartoony characters, we did the Disney Ultimates as well. We're doing these now. There's less room to hide anything that isn't exactly on in terms of the shape or the proportion, and because they're a thing that primarily exists as a 2D drawing. There's you have to sort of extrapolate what that would look like in 3 dimensions, and sometimes you have to make some interesting choices where, say, a lot of times they cheat in cartoons a bit, especially in the old 80s cartoons, and in some of the older stuff with the Simpsons too, where a head will turn, say, and it looks great from the front and great from the side, but that in between sort of turn, they do, it's like, oh, that didn't work at all. That's weird, and there's a shape that doesn't make sense from a certain angle. And so you have to reckon with all of that and sort of feel out, what is the right way to execute that character in 3 dimensions, so that when you turn it from every angle, it still feels like them.
Don't forget to order your Simpsons Ultimates Wave 1 on Super7.com right now. There is an ongoing joke on my channel where I constantly make mistakes, and I'm a bad YouTuber, and I pretty much am, to the point where I took a picture of Ralph Wiggum on a computer, and I was going to type "I'm a YouTuber" as the title, but while I was doing that, I actually misspelled YouTuber and put YoTuber.
That's perfect.
So, I feel like I have to bring that up for people who've been watching at some point during this process, and hope for Ralph Wiggum. when you were talking about people with like weird proportions, I'm thinking who has weird proportions like I don't know, like a Hans Mole Man or something.
Oh yeah, Hans Moleman has weird proportions. You know, think about like Abe Simpson's head. You know, it's sort of this weird, weird shaped. It's almost. I always sort of think about Abe looking a little bit like the three-eyed fish in terms of the shape. You know, the shape of his head could be swapped with that pretty easily. But I mean, just the whole sort of aesthetic of the show as a whole is, you know, their heads are larger relative to their body, their legs might be shorter, and some of those things. So it or the roundness where you have, you know, a big round body and these, you know, sort of thin, you know, cylindrical legs that stick out of it. It's a really fun challenge to get into and think about, like, okay, how do you make a Homer, for example, that you can pose in a lot of ways, but still try to make the joints as invisible as possible, so that you have a nice, clean aesthetic in whatever pose you're going to put in there.
Also, like they have bug eyes, right? Their eyeballs are outside of their face, so that thing you spoke about, you know, looking at the right angles, how does it look on a figure when you do something like that? So I that part makes sense. Is there anything else about this line that you can tell people, that you want to tell people about right now?
I mean,
you haven't already.
So many things. I mean, you know, we're having a great time making them, and you know, we just hope people get as excited as we do and enjoy them once they get them in their hands as much as we've enjoyed making them.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to, you know, more pictures. You have some prototypes, some models there, but hoping to see more updates in the future.
Yeah, for sure. As we go through the process, you know, like here we have our, you know, we're in the pre-tooling stage here. After we get through tooling, then we'll have our, you know, plastic first shots and test shots and things like that. And so, you know, we'll keep everybody updated as we go through the process, just to sort of show, you know, how things are progressing, but also just to let people see how the toys get made.
That's what I'm all about. You know, some people just like to enjoy the toys, but there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes. It's all very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously, you know, we're living it every day, so we find it interesting. But, you know, the feedback we've gotten over the years is people like to see, for the most part, people like to see, you know, how these things get made, and, you know, they can chime in and comment and ask questions, and, you know, we try to be as open as we can and just share that experience with everybody.
Another thing that recently was announced by Super7 is
the worst.
The Ultimates. You have these two characters, Bachelor and Captain Deadstar.
Yes. Let's see if I think I have these guys handy here. Here we go. Bachelor and Captain Deadstar. Whoop, there we go.
No, we don't need to see my face. Let's go with this one. What can you tell people about these two characters if they're not really familiar with them?
Well, so the idea behind the worst came out of the idea that, you know, we collect ourselves, of course. You know, we make toys, but we're also pretty huge toy nerds around here, and so we get excited about a lot of these older toy lines. You know, you think about, you know, the stuff we grew up with in the 80s, stuff we grew up with in the 70s, the 90s, and what were sort of the iconic toy lines we all played with. And then, you know, being the big nerds that we are, once we sort of had all of those and had, you know, dug back deeply into all of that, then we went deeper and, like, what are the obscure lines that aren't as well known? What are the knockoff lines from, like, you know, the 1984 dollar store? Like, what were those lines? And so as we get deeper and deeper into them, they all have their strengths and weaknesses and things that are cool, things that aren't, you know, and what worked and what didn't. But the one common thread through all of it was the villain is always the coolest character in any wave. As you look at, you know, whatever it may be, whether it's, you know, Star Wars or Warrior Beasts or Masters of the Universe, or, you know, you name it, there's all, or maybe, I'm sure there's an exception, but there's mostly, in most cases, there is one supremely cool villain that you're like, that's the guy that I want. And so, you know, in talking about that, we started thinking, like, well, what if you made a line that was only cool villains? And that's where the worst came from. So these are the worst villains we could think of. And we made a few series of reaction figures now with these characters, and we've now taken them up into Ultimates.
First off, I have to commend whoever did this box art.
That's the amazing Ed Repka.
It looks phenomenal, and more boxes that I cannot throw away. There's a pile of unopened stuff there. It's being upheld from the bottom. It's 11 Ultimates boxes, just because they're just so fantastic, and you can't get rid of them.
All right, Captain Deadstar.
Yes, the first one is Captain Deadstar.
Yeah, so this one, we were looking at it, with all of the characters in the worst, we're going along that worst cool villains we could think of. We tended to look at it as archetypes. So you have the vampire, you have the space pirate, you have the going back to some of the other characters in Reaction, you have the military genius, you have the Grim Reaper, all of those things. So you have the snake guy. And so Deadstar here he's a pirate, but he's a space pirate, and he's also a skeleton. And his deal is he just roams through the galaxy, sort of kicking ass and taking names.
He's kind of got the skeleton pirate look, but he's also got a futuristic looking blaster or handgun, sidearm, grenade.
Yeah, he's got a little grenade. He's got he's got his laser pistol there. He's got his cybernetic peg leg, but then of course he has his flaming sword as well. So he can do. Yeah,
I just noticed this.
He's got his shit list there for people to get on his nerves, and just to show that he is really a real jerk. The feather that he uses to write out his list and cross names off, he plucked out of his own buddy there. That hangs with him. So he's a cool character, but he is not a nice guy at all.
Diabolical.
Yes, exactly.
And the next one,
the Bat Prince of Darkness, Bachelor himself. So this guy, we went into, going back to the idea of villain archetypes, and we, think about, what does a vampire mean? What do we think about when we think about a vampire? And of course you have the classic Universal Monsters, Lugosi sort of interpretation of Dracula. But then we also wanted to go into, a bit more of a monstery thing. So we took the idea of the vampire bat and sort of squished those two ideas together, but then made it a little bit playful as well. So he's got the blood, he's got the goblet of blood, he's got the unholy book, he's got the cane sword and the cape and the dapper look and all of that. But then he also has, the sort of grandpa glasses for going out in the sun, and he's got with his middle fingers because he also is not a very nice guy.
Not at all.
They're with the worst, we wanted to make them mostly serious, but still, have a little bit of fun in there as well.
I think it's awesome that for a company who makes a lot of great products based on nostalgic toys, whether it be Transformers or G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. At a certain point, it's like, do we stop making old ideas into a new thing, like the nostalgia factor? And it's awesome to see, like, we have this original, these original properties, this IP, where it's something different. And I think if people are into something like that, definitely get behind something like this and encourage more new content. And there's nothing wrong with nostalgia and reissuing old toys, because obviously those are really real feelings that people get when they see this stuff. I'm guilty of it all the time. Every time I see these Ninja Turtles right here, the Ultimate ones, that sold me right away on Super 7. So. But on top of that, seeing new properties is very refreshing, and I'm sure it's exciting for everyone in the company, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, we love all the nostalgia driven stuff that we do. I mean, we do that because that's where we grew up, and we love it, and we want to, like we were talking with the Simpsons, same thing across Transformers, Thundercats, Silverhawks, Turtles, the rest. We want to explore the thing we love in a new way. But then we also want to explore new things. And so there's no reason why, in our mind, why both can't coexist. And so we'll do the things that we remember and find a fresh way to talk about those. And then we'll, once in a while, we'll have some sort of harebrained ideas about other new things we can do. And so we'll put that stuff out there as well.
I think that's the advantage of having like a smaller boutique style company where it's like, hey, I can make all that stuff, but then what I really want to make for myself or like new stuff, this is the option to do something like that with the company.
Yeah, for sure.
To do that. The Worst Ultimates Wave 1 also available for pre-order on super7.com right now. Recently on Super7, all the social media, Josh, you did a new video with the Transformers Ultimates Wave 2 figures. I see you have them in front of you right now. And I can see that Grimlock is ginormous. I mean, you can tell me in a video, this is, 8 inches tall, and the other figures are this. Those are just numbers until I ultimately see it side to side. It gives a whole different effect. Can you showcase that real quick?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is a fragile prototype here, so I'll handle it delicately. But you have Megatron, which is a fairly average, a little bit larger than average Ultimates figure, and then you have Grimlock, is just massive compared to that guy. He's a good couple inches taller, as well as just being thick, and you have that long tail, those big legs, and it can you can bend it at the knees, at the hips, the elbows, the shoulders, the midsection, the neck, the head, the jaw, the tail. So you can really get a lot of range out of this guy. And it is an enormous beast of a figure, as it should be. It's the leader of the Dinobots, for crying out loud.
That is crazy large. What about some of the other two in this line as well?
Yeah, so then you have a couple deeper cuts here. You got Trax over here and Bludgeon. Great characters, Trax from the Generation 1 cartoon. Bludgeon never made into the cartoon, but had a toy and appearances in the comic book and whatnot. And they just, you don't see quite as much done with them. But then when you get into that, you can, again, coming back to how do we present these characters, and we tell a lot of story through the accessories. So with Trax, he comes with a small version of Blaster in boombox form from the episode where there's a Decepticon nightclub and they go and they're dancing, and there's a like a break dancing gang, and it's just a very silly, fun episode. And then you have the head where he wears an alien mask when in I think it's Hoist Goes to Hollywood, and Trax and another guy are extras on the set, and they wear these goofy alien masks to be in a movie, and complains about it, of course. And then, Bludgeon, he comes with his extra heads. He comes with his, swords that, I've got a whole bunch of too much stuff over here, but you've got the, there we go, just a sec. You've got the swords that fit into their, cybernetic sheath here, and all that good stuff. So you can, get a lot of range of posability, of play, of accessorizing with him as well.
And I'm going to leave this third one to you. Where and when can people pre-order these figures, Josh?
These are available at super7.com right now. I think for only a couple more days, actually. So if you're interested in Grimlock, now is your chance.
For sure. Last question, most important. Who is the best Ninja Turtle?
I have always been a Michelangelo guy.
Awesome. Great choice. As long as it's not Donatello.
Yeah, I'm fine with Donatello, but if I got to rank them, he is not at the top.
Josh, thank you so much for your time. It was great speaking to you and meeting you. And these are fantastic toys that I enjoy and a lot of people enjoy, and it's cool to hear from the people behind them. And it's great to see they're passionate about making the toys as are the fans that are collecting them. Thank you so much.
No, of course. Thank you very much for having me on. It was great to meet you and spend a little time talking shop.